Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time to be part of this important webinar. Like Theo just mentioned, I'm Camilo Osuna. I work at Colombia with the ICT sector and with all the companies that are interested and in their path to international business. So basically, before we hear from the companies themselves, I'd like to take a few minutes just to share with you some important information about what it's like to be doing business with Colombia, what kind of business environment we have as we, currently, and keep in mind that all this information, if you need to go into details, you can always, ask for Colombia for further details on all the things that we're going to discuss today. So I like to share with you some of the things that, are happening today. This is not overnight, of course. Over the past 10 to 12 years, Colombia has been, going through a major reform on political and economic laws, which, have brought us multiple benefits in terms of stability and a more dynamic economy. We have grown to be more mature in terms of working strategically with international partners. We have been able to attract foreign investors to come into Colombia to partner up with local Colombian companies as well to opening up their own operations in Colombia. That has actually opened up, various and several windows of opportunities of doing business here within the country. We have been very aggressive in terms of opening our economy through more free trade agreements, which I'm going to go into details into that later on in this presentation. And basically, we have grown in terms of poverty level has been decreasing, and the middle class families have been achieving greater cash inflows, which actually has benefited our demand for products and services in Colombia. So our domestic demand has actually improved quite significantly. Part of all this, it's we are better connected to the world, to major business cities, in order for Colombians to fly overseas and also for overseas partners to come to Colombia, with shorter flights, with a better connectivity with the world. So today we have a 6-hour flight that connects us to Toronto, and 5 hours flight to connect us to New York, and so forth and so on. Just to show you that more airlines and more routes have been opening up for Colombia to be better connected with the rest of the world, with major cities. Doing business with Colombia is actually becoming easier. This is not really said by Colombia only, but also said by the World Bank, that has ranked us throughout the past, say, 6-7 years, with an easiness to get credit in Colombia that actually has boosted the creation of more companies. We have been ranked highly in protecting the rights of the investors that decide to come into Colombia. Registering property in Colombia has become more streamlined, and overall, the ease of doing business with Colombia has improved dramatically over the past 10 years. So that's why today the World Bank is telling the world that it's easier to come to Colombia and do business with our companies. Along all the things that I've mentioned so far, we've been working very hard into opening up to the world through the establishment of more free trade agreements. So today, Colombia basically has access to 60 countries. That represents around 1.5 billion consumers, and that's thanks to our different trade agreements that we have signed up with the rest of the countries in the world, with obviously with a major focus in the Americas, but as well in the European Union and parts of Asia. All of that, and this is actually highly related to the services sector or the ICT sector, and that is the reason why we're here this morning, is that Colombia has improved their enrollment rate in terms of education. Our population is ranked second in the region in terms of who we can count on in terms of working age population. We have the second highest rate after Brazil. People in the region has actually become more aware and concerned about their secondary education. So that's why in Colombia We have the highest enrollment in secondary education. So that in terms of, what's the benefit for the Colombian companies, for the foreign companies that decide to do business with Colombia, is that we have more and more with the years a more qualified talent pool that you can benefit from. As some of you may have heard, or maybe not, we have recently signed a peace agreement after a 50-year conflict within the country. And I like to bring this up because it's really important for us in this webinar that you understand the type of things that are coming next after signing up this peace agreement. Basically, we expect that on average, the economy will grow between an extra 1.1% in our GDP. By 2024, we expect that the foreign direct investment into Colombia will increase to $36 billion. We also expect that by the same year, 2024, the fact that we sign an agreement, peace agreement, we will be able to increase the trade rate between Colombia and the rest of the world by 21%. So basically, the message here, I want to make sure that everyone understands this, is that the peace has actually brought to us a great deal of benefits, because not only us for Colombia is a great deal, but also for international partners, international companies. It's for you to feel safer that you will be coming to a country, you will be doing business with companies that are in a territory that is in peace today. So saying that, in the past years, say 10 to 15 years, we have seen an increase in the number of multinational companies that have decided to invest in Colombia. This is just four examples, maybe major examples of companies that have, included Colombia in their international strategy and in international investment. So the examples here are IBM, that opened up an operation in Colombia that is quite important for the region. Unisono is a company from the BPO sector from Spain that also has trusted and invested in Colombia. DirecTV has an important operation here in Colombia and covers some of the region in Latin America. And then Everest, that is initially was a Spanish company, but it was acquired by a Japanese company, has a large operation in BPO and artificial intelligence solutions here in Colombia, hiring around 2,000 people. So these are just quick examples of some of the companies that have decided to do business in Colombia, and they're doing quite well so far according to their business projections. So if we go more into detail now, talking about why Colombia is a great digital business partner for those who are considering coming to Colombia and getting to know our companies and getting to know our sector. Like I mentioned, there is a great concern from the public sector and from the private sector to reach a more stable availability of IT talent. That's why people are studying more these majors, and they're going to school studying ICT-related subject matters. So we have a more stable availability of IT graduate talent in Colombia. We have a fast-growing domestic ICT industry demand. We have one of the lowest, we're not going to say the lowest, definitely is we're about quality. We're not talking about here about cost, a lowest cost, because it's not going to happen. But we have a good ratio between quality and cost here in Colombia. The things that you will find, the talent that you will find, it will be worth a while. And definitely we as a government, we have invested in infrastructure so that companies can do business easily with the world. So in the next slides, I will explain to you what some of the things that we have done from the government side to support all this growth. Important to note too, Colombian companies, make sure that they have all the international certifications that are recognized and of interest of international partners for doing business. So in Colombia, when we talk about ICT sector and how the Colombian companies have focused their work and their international business with the region, we see that, as you can see on this slide, is that we have placed major focus on the North American market. It's not by chance that they take 29% of our exports, today. And then some of the neighboring countries, are also very important to our exports currently. And Spain, due to language and cultural compatibility, is also a desired destination for ICT export related from Colombia. So, like I was mentioning, some of the things that we have done from the government and actually have, been able to do quite well is that Colombia is better connected with the world through an investment in infrastructure. So today, Colombia has over 10 submarine cables that connects us to the world. We have a internet connection that is reaching almost 60% of the Colombians connected to the internet. We have a very high smartphone penetration in Colombia, and Colombia ranks second in the region for the readiness for doing business in the cloud. Okay. So when we talk about creative industries, and probably that's one of the major reasons why we're here this morning, is that Colombia has actually specialized in what we have. Okay, our companies have become more specialized. I'm not going to go through, bullet by bullet, but just to show you that, we do have companies prepared for doing business overseas, international businesses in audiovisual market. In fact, we have a company here from the audiovisual market subsector. We have animation. There's another company for animation. Video gaming is also really important. In fact, we will be at GDC. Some of you will be, if that actually is an event that applies to you, or you will be attending GDC in San Francisco next week. We will be there with a delegation of 11 companies. Mobile application is definitely a trend, and it's also a trend within Colombia for companies to be doing that, penetrating that subsector. And digital market and digital content is definitely of the interest of Colombia for finding business overseas. One extra piece of information that I'd like to share with you that applies mainly for animation and film industry is that Colombia has actually established a really attractive cash rebate for those films that are partially or totally produced in Colombia. We have 40% for film services rebate for the production-related costs throughout the production, and then 20% for those costs that are logistics services within Colombia. Sorry. Also, there are some cities that actually have taken that rebate in even further by offering extra 15%, as it is the case of Medellin that offers 15% extra of cash incentive for the production spent in that city. Okay. So how do we make sure that the world knows about us? Well, we make sure that we participate in some of the most important events around the world. We were 2 weeks ago, we were at Barcelona in the Mobile World Congress with a delegation of 30 companies. We were at 4 years from now for also last week in Barcelona, talking to investors, potential investors, talking about our companies and our latest development in terms of ICT. We will be next week at San Francisco GDC. Like I said, delegation of 11 companies, making sure that publishers of video games understand our offer from Colombia. We will be in April in Miami for Emerge Americas. And we were very successful in our participation at Kids Screen in Miami, and we will be in France for MIPCOM. Some of the, there are plenty of success stories I could tell you this morning, but I'm not going to go through details. All I can tell you is that there are some companies, some really great international experience doing software development, outsourcing, specialized solutions, video gaming, film production, and all the sort of services that may be of your interest. In the overseas arena, we have made sure that the world knows about us, and then so we created a international campaign for the ICT sector in Colombia, made from Colombia, so that the world knows about our offer in this sector, and we know it as Pro Colombia or Colombia Bring It On. Colombia Bring It On is a campaign that has been going on for the past 5 years, and that is how we consolidate our offer and tell the world what we have in terms of ICT. And to finish up, just to show you this map, where we are in the world. Pro Colombia is, has offices throughout the world. The message here is that the information I gave you is in a nutshell is what we do, what we have. But you may have more detailed questions that you want to go over. You can always count on Pro Colombia for going into details and trying to answer all your questions. or if you want to use this webinar later on to ask some questions related to the things that I just discussed with you, you can use the chat option on this platform. Okay. Well, thank you very much again, and I'm going to pass it on to Theo.